Welcome back to another episode of Finish the Novel, a weekly vlog where I talk about past and present issues with finishing my novel, as well as give a current update on the status of the book. This week I want to talk about narrative devices, plot devices, any of those tools that writers use to help structure their story and make it interesting and help it flow for readers. If you're not super familiar with these terms, that's okay. They're mostly writing terms, but even the ones that are super convoluted and you might not really understand, you probably have some experience with just from watching TV shows or reading any books. So let's dive right into the styles. Narrative styles like chronological, reverse chronological, epistical, what other ones? Stream of consciousness, documentary. There's tons of different styles. And for my book, I didn't really choose my style when I'd gotten started. But I went with, I fell into the one that most everyone uses, which is chronological, where things happen in order. It's not like you're diving into the middle and then finishing with, going through the beginning for the middle and then finishing up at the end. Everything is happening in the order that it happens. And then I use quite a bit of real time, and I also use stream of consciousness. The stream of consciousness is interesting. I use it mostly to incorporate my magic system into my story. And I think that there are other people that have done that for sure. But I think that that's a really fun way to write, and I've had a fun time writing in that way, but it has been challenging. But I think I'm getting better as it goes on. It's starting to make more sense. And so, yeah, those are the three that I use: chronological, real-time, and stream of consciousness. But, there are a lot of other ones like epistical. If you ever read World War Z, that one is written all through diary entries and things and letters. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can write. And honestly, that can give you inspiration on you can kind of choose one and then with your idea at the very start and think, oh, I can structure my entire story in a different way and it'll be really interesting. But what about plot devices? At the start, when I just wrote that first section that I meant to be a short story and then it turned into a novel, that one, I was using quite a few different plot devices. I used flashbacks, and I also used a cliffhanger at the end. There might have been a plot twist, but it wasn't that intense. So all those different things, you probably are familiar with those. Those are all different plot devices. And while I've been continuing the book, that has been the issue, is trying to decide how much do I want to use these different plot devices and what is going to help structure and make the pacing feel the most comfortable for a reader. Because it is easy to kind of overbear a reader with these. And that's kind of part of someone's style and their tact is with their writing is how are you making it readable, right? How are you making it flow? How are you setting the pace? So you're probably familiar with a lot of books. At the start of a chapter, they start with setting the scene, making, contextualizing it and giving it a setting. And that's pretty that's pretty normal thing to do. I do that. And sometimes I try and, start it with dialogue at the start of a chapter and then bleed that into the setting. And then maybe they move on to another scene. And then, so those are all different ways that I'm using these plot mechanics in my book. And that's definitely part of the editing process too, where you're going back and you're reading a section, you're thinking, that feels a little dry, there's just a ton of dialogue and there's not much else just to give the reader to chew on. That's where, I might throw in some imagery, or I might think, oh, this is a good time to foreshadow this happening in the future. So you can tweak the dialogue, or even, in the setting, I like to use the setting to foreshadow things happening in the future, maybe the weather, maybe it's dark and gloomy and then something depressing is going to happen coming up, or rumbling and rumbling thunder in the distant clouds, foreshadowing something ominous happening. So that's the things that I like to use or like to look for while I'm editing. And I think that it's really improved my book. And lastly, I just want to touch on just how fascinating I think it is, because when I was doing research for just, like looking at different narrative devices and plot devices, I was thinking, like looking at this huge list, I'm like, I use this one and I've used this one, I use this one. And I didn't, I wasn't aware that I was using those things. And I just thought that was really amazing. Just the way that you can absorb these different styles and tools for writing without even knowing like the source material. Like I was using defamiliarization and I had never heard of that before. So that was interesting to me. Just a small note, but maybe if you're a writer, let me know if you've ever gotten online and looked at a bunch of different plot devices and narrative devices and been like, I've been using these all the time. Well, that just does it for our little topic for the week, but let's get to an update on the book. Unfortunately, guys, this is the first week I haven't written a single thing. It has just been hard with work. We started covering a new game, and I've just been spending all my time on that. Well, not all my time, because just segueing into what I've been doing as far as media and like reading and watching. I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2. It's like my favorite game, and it had an update, so I've been playing that. I've been playing this new game, which is a spooky game, and I stayed up till like 3 a.m. last night, so the routine is completely out the window. And my routine is in shambles. Doesn't help that next week I'm going to a wedding, so I'm trying to get all my work done before that. So I don't even know if I'm going to get to write next week. So I'm going to try and carve out some time, maybe even this afternoon, to at least put some pages down so I feel a little better about it. And just for what I've been watching a little Survivor and just my weekly episode of Shogun. That show rocks. But actually, just a little bit of trivia with Survivor. It hasn't like inspired me or anything, but if any of you have watched White Lotus, the writer or the showrunner, I think he's the creator of White Lotus series, he was a contestant on Survivor. And if you watch Survivor and White Lotus, you realize that there's a lot of similarities between like the cinematography and the setting with the island, and there's like someone getting knocked off or murdered. Just an interesting tidbit for you. And that's going to do it for this week, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure when I look and I see I got some more views on this video or that video. But of course, no pressure. If you can, I'll see you next week. Bye.